Hey, hello guys, my name is Mia Marie, and you are currently watching my Synastry Compatibility series where I go through all the 12 signs, sun signs, and how they get along. Now, as a general disclaimer, we reference so much more than just the sun sign for compatibility, but the importance of the sun and understanding someone's sun sign and accepting it and supporting it is that the sun sign describes the motives, the behaviors, the experiences that contribute to someone's sense of sanity. So we're not talking so much about what someone needs emotionally or how they flirt or what makes them great in bed, all of those very, romantic topics. We're talking about how to support someone's vitality, someone's sense of self, and someone's healing human journey. So keep in mind that this is just a gentle introduction, and you can get so much more by booking a session with me or another fantastic astrologer. Sun and Scorpio, these people come into Earth with a sole motive of transforming lower desires into higher will by being a spiritual warrior. And they often do this by examining pain. Now, I heard this quote today, and it made me think of Scorpio, irregardless of gender. But it was saying that you can either play victim or play the villain. And I think this is beautiful Scorpio energy because oftentimes they find themselves being a depository for the shittiest human experiences. It's almost like they've come to wrestle with the worst of humanity, especially as it relates to emotions. And so oftentimes they are victim, but you rarely ever hear a Scorpio characterize themselves as the victim. Instead, they take on the villain mentality. Now, I'm not saying all Scorpios are villains, but that was just something that I heard today that made me think of them. Scorpio is the second water sign, so it's socially oriented. And so it has this desire to establish a cohesive social order. It recognizes what needs to be eliminated and it just slices it at the knees. If you've ever had a Scorpio boss, they can be cutthroat. They often have some kind of relationship with inheritance or shared resources. They often do things with a partner, and it's because they rule the house of intimacy and shared resources. At least in their younger years, Scorpio is very afraid of being ostracized or socially alienated for liking or partaking in things that would be considered taboo or atypical. But this is like something they totally get off to. Scorpio offers love in a really interesting but uncomfortable way. I mean, true to form, right? And I'll use an example. So a Scorpio hasn't seen a friend in a year, and they're so excited to reconnect with someone, and they meet them in person and they recognize that it looks like their friend has aged 10 years. And in this 1 year, they've gained 40 pounds. A Scorpio is going to say, "Oh my God, you've gained so much weight. Are you okay?" Now, society would look at that and say, that's rude and inappropriate. And in a Scorpio's mind, it's like, well, that's truthful. Are you okay? And that's the point that I want to highlight, is they nurture and nourish the soul by pointing out something that everybody can see, but no one wants to talk about because it's so uncomfortable. And then the friend goes into it and they start talking about this terrible divorce and how they were betrayed and how they're dealing with trauma. And Scorpio sits there unfazed, totally supportive. And by the end of the conversation, the friend has a new awareness of their overall mental well-being. Now, when Scorpio shares their perspective, they're not meaning to cause harm. They're essentially saying, I'm paying attention to you. And after that conversation ends, they've done something profound. They've used the truth to set their friend free from a situation that was not serving them. They nourished the soul, but not in the way that we would expect or in a way that makes us feel coddled. Scorpio does not coddle. And that's an act of healing. Scorpios are healing. They do the surgical, dirty work where they cut people open and they fix what's broken. They fix what's not working. A second example, and I swear this all builds to a point, so stick with me. A second example is that these parents are taking their young child who's a Scorpio to see the child's grandfather who's in the hospital, very ill. The child goes in, observes the condition of grandpa, has the gut instinct and feeling. The parents get back in the car and they drive the child home. On the way home, the child says, "Wow, grandpa's really sick. He's going to die soon." Mom slams on the brakes, looks back and says, "Don't say that." A taboo subject. Now, a year later, grandpa passes away. The child was right. That gut instinct, that feeling was correct. But what the child learns in that moment is that what they think, what they see, what they feel, the truth, when they speak the truth, it hurts. It hurts other people. And so what happens in their younger years is they stop talking. And you see this oftentimes with men. Women who come to me with their Scorpio partner are like, "Oh my God, they always say that Scorpios are so emotional, but he never talks. He's so quiet. He keeps to himself." It's like, yeah, this is someone who's been socially conditioned to keep their mouth shut or they're going to be ostracized. Scorpio is they don't want to be socially ostracized because they're here to be intimate with people. Taurus is mine. Scorpio represents ours. It's always in contract with somebody. It rules contracts. It's the manufacturer. It's the company. Now, the way that they love is through truth. And so they need a partner who, when they go to those extreme places, because life sees to it that Scorpio has what could be considered traumatic or extreme circumstances and conditions. So they need someone who can withstand the emotional storms that Scorpio goes through without being negatively impacted. Another example that I'll use as it relates to Scorpio characters is if a Scorpio has been going through, let's say they have a divorce, they lost their job, their health is going down the drain, and they're recognizing that their life is falling apart. And they confide in a friend and they say, "Right now, I feel like committing suicide." Now this is heavy, but I think that this is true for Scorpios. The friend is probably going to say, "What?" No, they're not saying they're going to do it. They just say they feel like it. Most people will listen to that and say, "Don't do that. You need to see a psychologist. Like something is wrong with you." Someone who can be in bed with Scorpio will sit there and say, "If I were you, I would feel that same way too." There is no avoidance of the truth. There is no avoidance of deep, dark emotions, of realities that all humans have to withstand. Scorpio seems to get all of the lessons, all of the tough lessons. Hence why they are the spiritual warrior. But they require in partnership somebody who isn't afraid to hear the truth, who isn't afraid to be intimate, who isn't afraid to see all sides of a person as they develop and grow, as they win, as they lose, as they soar, as they fall. Once a Scorpio knows that it's safe with you, that it can be itself with you and you won't run away or like shake in your boots, that's when the soft, loving side comes out. They are extreme cuddlers. They love cuddling, they love hugging, they love being intimate, they like spending quality time together. They are also incredibly ambitious and usually extremely successful because they have like an iron fist and a velvet glove. They know how to get shit done and they know how to place people in the right roles. They are like the master when it comes to organizing a company and making sure that things go as planned. They're on top of their shit and they make sure that you are also living up to your potential, because oftentimes if they're in business with you, if they're hiring you, you are a reflection of them and their product or their service. And so they hold you to your highest potential as well. They are also soulful lovers. Like, I think they believe in soulmates. I think that they want that type of deep, unbreakable bond. They would die for you. And more than that, they would live for you. Now, let's talk about some deal breakers. As I said, they are here to examine pain and to embrace truth. So if you are someone who will fabricate peace just to feel comfortable, you're not going to get along with a Scorpio. If you are trying to be polite and you sacrifice honesty in your intimate relationship, then they will also not trust you. If you are always polished and clean and poised, then they will be a little weary of you because What aren't you showing them? And also, if you agree all of the time with whatever they're doing or whatever they're saying, they're going to be suspicious because they understand how human psychology works. If two people are getting along perfectly all the time, then someone's not being honest, someone's not showing up, someone's not participating in the relationship. They want to wrestle with you sometimes. I'm not saying that these people love a fight, but they understand what it takes to be in an intimate, committed relationship with somebody. And full transparency, Scorpio, the eighth house, is the pinnacle of the arc of intimacy in astrology. And so it is programmed for partnership and it does want connectivity, but it's like a cactus. You know, like there's water inside, there's emotion inside, but you got to get through the pricks to get there. Someone who is born with their sun in Aquarius has a soul that came into this world to awaken our consciousness. It's almost as if they have a different set of eyes than the rest of us. They see the world differently. And a lot of the time, stereotypical astrology is like, oh my God, you're trying to be different or you're trying to be unique. No, that's just the way that they see the world. And often it creates this immediate recognition that you don't fit anywhere. Aquarius doesn't fit in any specific space, and it creates social anxiety. They don't know how to act. They don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. There is an ambivalence towards being around people because they don't quite, it doesn't compute in their head. Their minds are like computers. They are the 11th sign, which means that they are the third, the eldest air sign. So they take the perspective, the information that Gemini collects. They know that they have a mind. And then they take the information that Libra collects. They know how to put themselves in other people's shoes. They know how to compromise. They know how to negotiate. They know how to establish trust. And then they go, okay, how do we get everyone to trust each other? How do we create a community? And how do we develop this community? How do we transform our experience of life together? How do we elevate everybody? The interesting paradox with Aquarius is that they are knowledgeable, they're a resource, they have leadership skills, they are often the people that others go to when they don't know what to do as it relates to a community or group activity. They're human rights activists. They can find the gaps in structures. They know how to advance us in a very positive way, but they don't like being the center of attention. And oftentimes they don't like talking about themselves. They may feel internally like they don't want to attach to a label because they have a hard time accepting and celebrating the ego. They're the opposite of Leo. Leo is all about, here's my personality, here's how I shine. Aquarius takes that attitude but positions it towards the community. How can we shine? How can we develop? How can we be celebrated in the most honest and authentic way? And so you'll find that they're comfortable behind a computer or on a phone, but can be a little socially awkward. I think that they would feel socially awkward or as if there is never a place for them, even when they are in a community. And this feeling can be uncomfortable for them at first. It can manifest as social anxiety, and they may even avoid social situations depending on where they are inside of their head. But it serves a purpose. And that purpose is that you need to remain detached enough so that you can innovate, so that you can think your own thoughts, so that you can go off in your own direction. And oftentimes they're trailblazers, they're trendsetters. They are always 10 steps ahead of the community. And because they are also a fixed sign, they're stubborn, they are unmovable in that. They have to have a certain level of confidence in their ideas and opinions in order to say, no, I'm not going to conform. You are going to come here. And here's why you're going to come here. And this is how it benefits you. And this is how the human race is developing, whether you like it or not. They have this amazing ability to gaze into space and project a very clear image of a future that is totally within our capability. Like we can totally arrive to that space with them. I've said this and I will continue to say it, that even though Aquarius is an air sign, it is very sensitive. More sensitive than it realizes. And what happens when they're overstimulated is they become numb and they detach. This is the soul wound of someone who has strong Aquarius in their chart. Because things are always changing and because these changes affect so many people in so many negative ways that they feel equipped or responsible for repairing, they will detach from the part of themselves that cares just to stay afloat, just to stay with the changes in culture and society. And so there is this robotic tone to them, or there can be just an obvious lack of emotion. You can be struggling with something and you can be crying in front of them and explaining all the which ways that you're heartbroken or let down, and just the opposite. You could be super happy about something and there's this robot before you like, I understand. The way of loving is that they've often researched what you're going through and what's going on in your brain and how humans typically act and how to repair that specific thing. And so they're able to like spit back this report to solve your problem, but it can be hard for them to stay in the emotion or to sympathize with you. And it's not a reflection of how much they do or don't care about you. It's more so a reflection of their internal state of being. It's hard for them to access emotions. Surprisingly enough, however, they make excellent partners because they understand the Libra lesson of trust and compromise, but they also are not looking for something hot and fiery, that flirty fling that Gemini wants. They want a friend. They understand that if they are going to commit to something long-term, they have to be with someone that they like. They don't have to have the same interests, but this person has to be stimulating and intelligent and good-hearted and good-spirited. They want to be with their best friend. That is their ideal partner. And so they may hesitate to commit. I haven't heard too many complaints about Aquarius people not getting into relationships, but when they do, it tends to last because they do think long-term, and they often choose someone from I don't want to say non-emotional space, because the spirit, the soul does respond to people, but it's not so much about how you make them feel. It's that you guys are just so compatible with each other that it makes sense for you to be together. And that's why Valentine's Day surprises everybody that it's in an Aquarius season. But traditionally, that's when people were getting married. And statistically, Aquarians have the most success when they get married, because again, they marry for the right reasons. They're using their head and their soul together to make the just call. Aquarius and love, they will want to talk to you. They'll want to know what you're thinking, what you've learned, what is stimulating you. They're going to have those late night conversations. They're going to be very present with you. And again, not super emotional about it, but they are wanting to collect data on you. They're going to master you in one way, shape, and form. That's a kind of hidden quality to them, is that they're constantly collecting data on you. So they can put it into their computer and they know what to expect and they know what you want and they know where you are mentally, emotionally. And they're just so friendly. That's what it is. They're just so nice to be around. I don't have any complaints about an Aquarius. Now, some downsides to dating an Aquarius, or not downsides, but what they don't like, is they don't like somebody who is negative, emotional, or moody, because it flies in the face of their energy. And it's not so much that you affect their mood, it's like what you're saying and what you're doing is irritating and inefficient and a waste of time. And those are all things that they prize. They like being efficient. They like using energy positively. And if you're focused on things from the past or things that you can't control, then you're not making good use of this brilliant brain that you have. Another thing they won't like is if you're impolite or rude to other people, or if you don't care about social movements. If you are mispronouncing people's names after they've corrected you, if you're not in the know about what communities are working through what, or if you have a blatant disregard for the overall quality of humanity and people's lives, they will have no respect for you, because this is what their life is about. They are in service to people. They are trying to break the minds, the structures that keep us bound and limited and trapped in a pastime. And so you embodying that energy, it's like, oh my God, no, you're the enemy, you're the foe. Aquarius is ruled by Saturn and Uranus. Uranus is the modern ruler, but Saturn is the traditional ruler. And so typically you have two types of Aquarius. And what's interesting is that they embody both of them at different times of their life. So either the Aquarius person comes in very quirky, atypical, doesn't fit in. And then as time goes on, they become more Capricorn-like. They're more serious and they're about the mission and the rules and following protocols, or you have someone who ages backwards, who is all about the rules and tools and following what authority says and doing what you're supposed to do. And then they get really quirky in their older years. So it just depends. Now, going back to deal breakers, Aquarians are rebellious by their programming. They come into this world needing to stir shit up, needing to awaken our consciousness to pull us along. If it weren't for Aquarians, we wouldn't have women's rights. We wouldn't have gay rights. It's that energy that progresses us as the human race. And so if they are trying to rebel against a specific structure and they're starting to embody that rebellious energy, and you shun them and you further ostracize them, if you are not a friend or an ally in their development and experimentation, they're going to want to leave you because they're stubborn. That's what they do. They dig their heels in. They won't be emotional about it. They won't yell at you. They won't raise their voice. They won't criticize you. They'll just sit you down and say, this isn't working out. I don't think we're a good match. And they can do this because their passion is towards people, groups, social reform. And so they don't inherently want or see the need for a partner unless they have a partner who, is truly a partner and shows up for them and supports them. Then they understand the value of that relationship. But until that point, if you're just a nuisance, if you're just another critic, if you're just someone who makes them feel more weird than they already feel, what's the point of having you? See your way to the door. Thank you. Bye. I will say this though. One thing that I've noticed through working with clients with Aquarius placements is that once they are in a committed relationship, and they have in their mind said, I'm going to be with this person for the long run, if they actually have married somebody and it's not working out, it can take them a long time to actually leave. And it's because they're committed. They're stubborn. They're a fixed sign. They often do what they believe in. And I think that's kind of the lesson that you learn when you're with these types of partners, is Aquarians awaken to their own unconscious motives through these dysfunctional relationships. They self-actualize through these relationships that don't work, but that fixed quality allows them to stay in relationships that they would otherwise recognize as unhealthy. But all in all, Aquarius is a great partner in, I would say passion, I would say play, but it's neither of those. They're just a great partner to have in life because they will commit to you, they won't play games, and they are focused on something bigger than themselves at all times. They want to make an impact. They want to help us all grow and develop. And the gift that these two bring to each other is that they highlight each other's weaknesses. And that if they were to entertain 25%, I pulled that number out of my ass. If they were to integrate 25% of what the other person has, it would work wonders for them. Sun in Scorpio, Sun in Aquarius. This is a challenging combination for multiple reasons. So let's get into it. To begin with, we have water and air. They are opposite elements. A lot of people think that the opposite of water is fire, but when you're drinking a water bottle, it doesn't burst into flames when you're done. It's just air, it's empty. And so these two could not be more different in terms of what they need to feel safe, sane, and fulfilled. Aquarius wants a stimulating intellectual conversation that elevates our consciousness, that proves that we are human beings in charge of this animalistic beast that is the body. And Scorpio is involved in emotions. What is that animal instinct? Why does that animal instinct drive us to do things that cause trauma and pain? And how do we rise from these really, truly horrific situations? Aquarius doesn't like looking at emotions, and Scorpio will dive through the depths of hell to understand what motivates somebody to behave a certain way so they can set themselves free from the demons that they have encountered throughout their lifetime. As I said, Scorpio wants closeness. It wants to merge with somebody. It wants to know that we are in this together. It is the sign of sex and occult theory and things that we're not supposed to talk about. Scorpio is incredibly loyal, but it wants intimacy. It wants to know who you are, down to your naked truth. And Aquarius likes the truth. It is also in seek of the truth, but an intellectual type of truth. It doesn't really want to do too much with its physical body. And in fact, it might feel a little uncomfortable being naked or being seen or being explored emotionally because it's something that it actively avoids. And it doesn't have the tools that Scorpio has to meet the emotional storms that it may, so swiftly avoid. And so what you can have here is two people whose motives, they don't pull away from the other person, but it directly destroys or distracts what the other is doing. In essence, it is very challenging for an Aquarius to show up for Scorpio's mission, even if it's just a supporting role. And it's equally as challenging for a Scorpio to show up for an Aquarius mission. They are at a 90-degree angle on the zodiac belt, which means 90 degrees is a point of challenge. It's like they're sitting at a table, but they really have very little in common. They're just kind of this nuisance in the corner who keeps saying things completely out of left field. So they don't really see eye to eye. They're not chasing the same things. And in fact, in order for an Aquarius to step into a Scorpio's role, it can kind of feel like they're putting their hand in hot water for no reason. It just seems to burn to an Aquarius. Now, going back to something that they have in common is they both like the truth, but it manifests in different ways. Their search for the truth comes about in different ways. Scorpio will sit down and say, you know what, I realize that you have been detached, you've been on your computer, you haven't been paying attention to me, and I'm unhappy about it. They would use words that are much more aggressive than that. And Aquarius would be like, let's be civil. Like, where's the respect? Why would you ever talk to me like that? Scorpio will probably raise their voice, have a very dramatic, theatrical expression of the level of disappointment that they're experiencing in their relationship. And Aquarius might actually assess that as a dangerous situation because they do not allow themselves to experience anger in that way, let alone express it in that way. And so as Scorpio is being its true, authentic, wild animal self, Aquarius then creates more distance. Now, what Aquarius doesn't recognize, and this is the classic case of anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. I'm not saying that this is every Scorpio and every Aquarius has, to each their own attachment style. But I am saying what happens in these moments of peak challenge is Scorpio is begging for attention. But the way that they're begging makes Aquarius want to leave. And it creates this cycle where Scorpio tends to chase Aquarius over and over again in effort to get the satisfaction that it would like. But they're both stubborn and they're not going to change their mind. And so another thing that I should point out is that they do have kind of destructive qualities, both of them, but in different ways yet again. Scorpio is ruled by Mars and Pluto. Mars is the planet of war, and Pluto is the planet of healing, transformation, breaking down and breaking through. As it relates to your personal development, fighting for what you love, going to war for what you love. Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, the planet of rules, discipline, commitment, loyalty, professionalism, and Uranus, that is, the rebellious, the quirky quality. So they are wanting to transform, but they go about destroying themselves or the system very differently. Scorpio is the type of person where it's like, I'm going to hurt you even if it means hurting me. I'm going to set myself on fire. Aquarius is like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I would never do something like that. And they want to see transformations that happen on an intellectual level or on a structural level. They are not trying to put themselves in harm's way or exhibit unhealthy, toxic behaviors. They do not try to extend bids for attention in that way. Now, I'm kind of laying it on thick, the downsides of Scorpio and Aquarius here. And the reason why I'm doing it is because I think it's very easy in this relationship combination for you guys to see the extremes in one another, because on a rolling basis, your needs are not getting met. Aquarius needs intellectual, higher level thinking and conversation and ideas, and Scorpio can be very resistant to ideas. That's just an idea. It wants emotional intensity. It wants things extremely good or absolutely horrible. And Aquarius doesn't like, most signs do not like living in extremes, because life does not require that they live in extremes in the same way that it has for Scorpio. And I do think that, Scorpio being a water sign, there is a negative charge, which means that it is receptive. It is a depository for energy, whereas Aquarius is not. Aquarius is a positive sign, which means that it just creates things. And so what you can see here is that at the end of the day, it's very hard for an Aquarius to unwind and to find peace, because Scorpio is needing to talk. Being a socially oriented sign, it's needing to talk to its partner about all the ways in which everybody has made their day terrible. And if this were like a Pisces and a Scorpio, Pisces would sit there totally unfazed, open, like, let's go there. Yeah, what else happened? Tell me more. But an Aquarius will feel like half of these issues that you're dealing with are purely because of your perspective. And if you released your need to identify as a warrior, as a fighter, as the person being challenged, if you released your identity as being the challenger, if you didn't expect life to fuck you over, then maybe you would attract different experiences. And so Aquarius can invalidate a lot of the things that a Scorpio is going through. Now, even though this energy does feel very much like a gridlock, like there is really nowhere that we can turn, there are people who are born with both Aquarius and Scorpio energy. And so you can even translate the idea, well, how do you make peace with yourself, to how do you make peace in this relationship? If this were a quality of yours, how would you show up for yourself? And I think that there is medicine in that. There are many astrological configurations where you can be in your own personal gridlock inside of your mind. And the gift that these two bring to each other is that they highlight each other's weaknesses, and that if they were to entertain 25%, I pulled that number out of my ass. If they were to integrate 25% of what the other person has, it would work wonders for them. Scorpio would then have some sense of stability. It would have the option to detach from situations where it would normally lose control over its temper and its tongue or its fists. It could relax its armor and just witness behavior versus needing to one up something bad that's happened. And Aquarius is going to be going through this from 2024 for like ever, where they are going to have to recover all of the pieces of themselves that they detached from in order to stay up to date with the changing culture and society. And so Aquarian characters are going to be undergoing a huge scorpionic type of transformation where you must appreciate that you are a human too, and a soul, and those two need to be at peace with each other. And so if Aquarius would listen to Scorpio's bids for intimacy, Aquarius could not only learn how to be intimate with someone else, to be loved, to have loyalty, to have companionship with someone regardless of what condition you're in, but they would also learn how to be more intimate with themselves. And so I think the great majority of your relationship will be you guys just uncovering all of the problem areas. And if you guys choose to stick it out, this is one of those relationships where I would encourage compromise. I do not always encourage compromise. If you want to know what I mean by that, you can look at any sister sign synastry video that I've made, because I do talk about an alternative to compromise. This is one where it's like, okay, I don't agree with you. I know I don't want what you have, but at the same time, I have none of what you have. And I should probably explore that. I should probably understand that. I should probably integrate that. I should probably consider why I'm so resistant to embody whatever it is that you have. What within me is afraid to release control in that way. These are two very controlling signs. And so this relationship is sure to be intense, very hot, very cold. But being, fixed signs, I can see it being hard for either one of them to pivot and change course if the relationship is not working, just after a month or two. I see you guys wanting to wrestle it out. And if you do, you may find that this person has qualities that you didn't even realize that you were lacking. And therefore they bring gifts that you didn't even think were yours to receive. And so I do encourage you to book a reading with me and figure out what other things that you guys have going in your relationship synastry chart. I mean, your chart has over 2,000 configurations. So let's unpack it. You can find me at wellandrising.com/services. Toodles.